We're born into our names, but we become family by heart. I'm Dustin Gruss, public speaker and family transition coach. When my wife and I found out in the beginning of 2016 that we weren't going to be able to have our own biological children just 7 months into our marriage, we were shook. Little did we know what lied ahead through our journey of infertility, foster care, and where we are now, having recently adopted our two beautiful boys. What we do know is every little bit of help we got along the way was priceless. And that's what we can expect with this podcast. Stories of inspiration and resources to lead you through that journey. From the heartbreak of infertility to the hope and blessings that come with foster care and adoption. We may have different stories, backgrounds, and names, but we're all family here. This is Family by Heart. What's up, family? Welcome to another episode of Family by Heart. I'm your host, Dustin Gruss. I am very excited to have our guest with us today. He's a host of Rose from Concrete podcast. He's a co-author of Redefining Normal and co-creator of the Rose Empowerment Group and the Scholarship Expert. And we'll go over each of those. I'm not going to go too much detail. We'll go over each of those. But what comes before all this and made it possible was his and his wife's experience growing up and overcoming many challenges and experiences in the foster system. My guest today is Justin Black. Justin, thank you so much for coming on today.
How you doing, Dustin? It's a privilege and honor to be able to talk to you.
The honor is all mine, honestly. I'm doing good today. So glad to have you on. I actually found you on the networking site Audrey for podcasts like a while ago, and like I saved you. I'm like, okay, once I get this podcast going a little bit, I definitely want to talk to you. And that was before I even read your guys' book. And then I one night I was on like Amazon Kindle like buying binge, and yours was one of the first ones I read. And like soon as I got through, I believe like 2 or 3 chapters, I'm like, I have to talk to them. And we're definitely going to dive into your book today. It was incredible. So again, the honor is all mine. I'm so glad to have you here. Now you're from Detroit. You grew up in Detroit, correct?
Yep, from Detroit, Michigan, born and raised, and yeah, that's where I'm from.
All right. Well, Cleveland, Ohio, I won't hold that against you. So, we'll try not to talk about that. Your Tigers are taking it to my Guardians this week, but it's all good. Now you've been doing a lot of speaking and advocating, and another one of my like favorite motivational speakers is from Detroit as well, and that being E.T. Eric Thomas.
Yep.
Is he someone that you listened to a lot growing up, or someone you listen to now? Have you had the opportunity to meet him at all? Because I feel like you guys would connect over your love for Detroit and your experiences and everything.
No, I wish I had a chance to meet him, and I'm sure our paths will cross eventually. I've had friends who met people, some of his friends and people he knows, so I'm sure our paths will cross eventually. But growing up, I think in high school, around high school, like 9th or 10th grade is when I first heard of Eric Thomas, and grown familiar with him, just his story and the impact of his words, want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe. I'm like, wow, that's dedication right there. And even when I first heard of him, I didn't exactly, I didn't think of myself as a speaker, and still to this day, I don't think of myself primarily as a speaker. It's hard to say my primary role or what I identify as, but for me, I would like to put, maybe author as one of the things at the top because of my love of writing and my love of communicating. And I first heard of Eric Thomas in like one of my media classes. We used to always watch his speeches and everything, and just how magnifying it was. It was just amazing. So definitely inspiring me. And I think even though my style of speaking is slightly different, I think his is very intense. He talks a lot of football teams and people in the sports arena and different things like that. But I think my style is a bit different in my approach. But I think when you think of slogans like "succeed as bad as you want to breathe," I've always wanted to have an impact, like the impact that gives people and how that inspires people. I always wanted to inspire people in a similar fashion, maybe differently, but in a similar fashion with something, a slogan or a word or something I'm doing or something that I say. So
Absolutely. Now, I think inspiration is definitely a word that comes to mind when it comes to yours and Alexis's book. Now, on your webpage for Redefining Normal, you have a review calling it honest and raw, heart wrenching, and necessary. And I would add to that, I believe it's all those things, but I would to that brings hope and inspiration, because what you guys experienced listening to your stories or reading your stories, to now seeing, like, by the end of the book where you were at, and then seeing on social media the things that you guys are doing, um, the fact that you just had wrote for an article for a publication, that I know that was just popped up on your social media today. I mean, that's an honor, and that's again speaking to your being an author and your love for writing and stuff. Um, I think inspiration and hope is definitely two of the things I would add to that review, and I imagine there was more to that testimony or review that person wrote, but those are definitely words I would use to describe it.
thank you.
Um,
I definitely appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, can you describe what the book covers and then what made you decide to write it, especially a first book together where there could be creative differences between you and Alexis?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the biggest influences of us writing this book came from, I think we just started to, a large theme throughout our conversations and us getting together as two former foster youth was how much trauma came from our background and our peers and other people around us, and how, when my mom and dad came together, some of the trauma and things that was passed down to us was so normalized, and how they created an environment where they set the standard, they set the culture, and what the things that my mom and dad did together, what they created, I can see the ideas that they had being passed down to my nieces and nephews, which is their grandchildren. So
Mm,
how deep does it go when two people come together, and what, beyond just creating children, just the ideas that they establish, the ideas that they establish, the culture that they establish, how deep rooted is that beyond just them, and how far does it go? And a lot of times those deep rooted conversations and ideas and culture is a lot of times unhealthy. So those are just a lot of just regular conversations that me and Alexis were having, but before even we even thought of a book. And just how, wow, the kids around us, they see this, they see that, and they don't even think twice about it. But now that we're removed from some of those situations, some of those environments, we're from the outside looking in, and how crazy it can look, being in that environment. So we wanted to write something about that dynamic, and how me and her, we never really had too many positive examples growing up. And the book was originally going to be focused on relationships and kind of the things I just explained, but even deeper than that, how these practices and ideas and the culture is passed down generationally, and how generational trauma can become normalized, and how it's normalized in our life and in our family. That's why we had to go through the process of redefining normal, because our normal was made up of things, of ideas, of habits, of practices that wasn't healthy or conducive for us, either ourselves, those around us, or our children that we will have one day. So we had to go through the process of redefining normal. And the purpose of writing this book, creating a company, Redefining Normal, that we have now, is to teach other people, challenge other people, and implement ideas into their life that would challenge their normal and help them redefine normal in either a complete 180, or maybe one aspect of their life, just the way they communicate with their partner, their definition of love, how they go about building relationships, and so many things of that nature.
absolutely. And I think one thing you could see throughout the book and your guys' lives, and even now, I'm sure you're making small shifts and stuff. And while you talk about making that 180 shift, um, I feel like, and tell me if you agree with this, that for you guys to get to where you are, it was a lot of small steps. Like, yes, there were very traumatic things that you guys experienced in your lives growing up, but to heal from each of those, it was more of a small step versus like suddenly, okay, I'm just turning around right now. Like it's, can you explain like what that, how you guys found that process to be?
Yeah, of course. So a lot of people always ask us that when we talk to different adults, foster parents, and advocates of what was that moment, just that moment where the light bulb went off or whatever. And I think having that perspective can sometimes be dangerous because if the youth that you're working with and the people that you're interacting with, they don't have that moment, that moment that just they can complete do a 180, then sometimes we're disappointed. We have harsh expectations, but a lot of times there will be mistakes along the journey, but there's different steps that you could take, different small steps that you can take along the journey that will help you out. And that's where the things get a little bit difficult, where trying to support people and be there for people. It's like you have to have patience, have mercy, because they will make mistakes. But are you getting 1% better each and every day? And it's not to say that, people who I've heard of stories who people who are addicted to drugs and they made a complete 180 one day and just said, I'm not doing this anymore. And they never touched a bottle of alcohol or any drugs again, ever again in their life. But for most people, we need to take it step by step and day by day. And even today, I have to be aware of, there's drug abuse that runs in my family. So I have to be aware of my medication that I'm taking. Am I going, I like wine, but am I going to wine and alcohol to numb my pain, or is this something I can enjoy just casually or something like that, and not using this as a replacement for some type of therapy or counseling or my partner, or using it as a crutch? So understanding the relationship I have with different medications, different alcohol in different environments that I'm in, and making sure I'm intentional as possible about my circle around me in the environment, so they can help me to be a better person and not take me back to places that I don't want to go.
And I love that your awareness with your family history and you're being intentional about why you're turning to the wine. Is it for relaxing? Is it for the crutch, the numbing yourself? And I kind of have a similar experience with that. Like my family don't really have alcoholism in my family. It skipped a couple generations. I believe I have like some great grandparents that might have had alcohol issues, but my wife and I, we adopted two boys, and the case for went from temporary custody to permanent custody. The court date was January of last year, and I had been working in a gym up to that point. But then when COVID hit, I just had a feeling the gym I was working at was going to close. And so for New Year's resolution, I decided, you know what, we got the kids' court date, and we got, I'm not going to be really working or have as much accessibility to gym anymore. I'm not going to turn to alcohol as a crutch. I want it out of my system. I'm going to step away from it. So, as a New Year's resolution last year, I gave up alcohol. And then as I came to, and it was a stressful year last year, going from, the court date, then having to wait for appeals, find out the appeal process, chance that the oldest, the two boys could possibly go to grandma. Like it was a stressful year. And I'm glad I took away that option of having alcohol as a crutch. I just eliminated it for myself. And then what I found was, there was some aspects of the being able to have a beer with my friends, stuff like I missed, but it was more the social aspect. It wasn't the alcohol. And I found there's been good replacements of non-alcoholic beers I can get, and there's a lot of options out there for that. So definitely,
Congratulations on that. Yeah, I think that's just amazing, and just living as an example of, for the kids and for your family, of even as an adult, if there's adjustments that need to be made in your life, you don't have to be stuck in that forever. Sometimes I feel like some of our addictions and things that we do, and sometimes the things that are negative in our lives, we just associate with who we are, and it gets attached to who we are fundamentally and our principles. And I hear so many people who are maybe dealing with something, dealing with an issue, and they say that's who they are. And even
mm,
my mom, like she felt that, abusing certain things, or the type of person that she was in certain aspects, sometimes it was unhealthy, but she just identified, this is a part of who I am. And I think that once we can disassociate ourselves from certain attributes, certain habits, and things like that, and say, "I'm above that," I'm this is not just who I am. I'm above that. I think that's should be praiseworthy, and I definitely praise you for that. That's amazing.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that greatly. It's being a parent, which again, Alexis is pregnant, and so you guys are gonna have your first coming along soon. And stuff you'll find there's difficult times and stuff that it sometimes makes you want to lean on the crutch, but really when you can find something within yourself to just calm you down and steady yourself and not turn to the outside. And if you're going to turn anything outside, turn to your spouse, turn to your support team that sounds like you have in place, which is awesome. So I'm happy for that for you.
Definitely, yeah.
One thing that there was a section, and you kind of talked. This is kind of going back to the normal um, that you get from your parents, normalization and redefining normal. And there's an excerpt that I kind of highlighted, and it talks about our parents' voice becomes our inner voice. Think about how your parents spoke to you. Were they loving and caring, or the opposite? Next, think about how you speak to yourself. Children internalize everything their parents tell them, especially how the parents choose to characterize them. If a parent tells you that you were bad or stupid, that is a hard thing to shake in later life because we tend to live by miss our parents great, good, or bad. And the other part that kind of went with that, and I think it was another thing, was like um, when we do something bad, like we're told we're a bad kid, and instead of like, or if we are all that I just read, but then with respect, like if your parents punish you and physically and abuse you, like is it because you're a bad kid or because they were a bad parent? So I think that was did that make sense how I just read it together?
Yeah, yes. I'm trying to think. So
So so I
yeah,
think what I'm getting to is like your parents will tell you things and internalize, and like so if you did something wrong, then um, they might punish you, and there's the whole culture now of like, okay, well, we received spankings when we were kids and stuff, like, okay, but some of the physicality that we hear about, especially with the foster system, it's a lot more than a spanking. So taking the verbal abuse of, okay, you did this wrong, you're stupid, you're dumb, you're terrible, and then they take it to the next degree, they add the physicality of punishment to it. And instead of speaking with a child and telling them what's wrong, giving them an example on how to handle it the next time, they're creating that belief within the child of I'm a bad kid. I do bad things. That's just the way I am. Kind of like what you said your mom used to describe versus, okay, it's a bad parent, or this is what was normalized for the parent. It's from their generations growing up. And this is how they were taught and learned how to treat their kids. So where do you think that um, that break comes in where you and Alexis were able to separate and redefine normal, where you guys were able to look at, okay, this is what's been going on for generations in our family. This is how we were able to create that. Like, again, we talked about it being a process, but where do you think like it first hit you that, okay, I need to start making those smaller changes?
yeah. I think first it helped that unfortunately with me being I'm the youngest of my five siblings, so I lived in unhealthy environments for a long time. But I think for my older siblings, some of these ideas became deeply ingrained into who they were. During their childhood, teenage years, and young adult years. For me, I think a change in environment did help. It was extremely helpful and impactful, and not only just to change an environment, but also the change of ideas where I did start to internalize things where if I did something good and my parents didn't validate me, then I thought it would be worthless. It wasn't
Mm,
important. So then I had to change an environment where I did go to a group home setting. It's not me kind of advocating for group homes, but I was in a group home setting where it was funded by the church. I had many mentors and people who looked like me, who were there for me to support me. And in that environment, it was all words of affirmation. It was kind of replacing the words that I heard for years. And the sense of worry that I had, I think that was one of the biggest things that I could say I received from my mom. She always had this sense of worry and anxiety and panic. And that I think that was kind of passed down to me, where if something went wrong, I would like completely snowball. And I talked about that in the book, where if I
Mm-hmm.
failed an exam or failed a test and I'm about to fail the whole class and I'm about to drop out and all these other things, just going from 1 to 100. So for me, I had to be surrounded by people who instead would give me words of affirmation and start to change my perspective of failures and accomplishments and the meaning of it in my life and the purpose of it all. So that's what kind of really helped me, one little by little, start to reshape my idea of my failures, the words being spoken, the power of life and death in our words and in our tongue. So that's what really started to kind of influence me to change my thinking little by little.
Do you still use do you use affirmations yourself, or were you always looking more for the external affirmations?
I think that being in that environment taught me about the importance of affirmations within myself and even the language that I use towards myself. It's extremely important that I started to change the way I spoke about things and change the way that things that I say, even to other people, to myself. It was extremely important. I started to do that. So every day I know the importance of words and things I have to say to myself and things I have to tell myself, and telling myself certain things helps me to shape my mindset of what I think and feel about certain situations, things that's going on, and things of that nature. So even if I'm in a situation that's uncomfortable, situation that I don't like, I always have to look at the brighter side of things and the light side of things and tell myself that, okay, I'm going to focus on what I can control and do my best at what I can control and allow my faith to kind of handle the rest that's out of my control. And then start to practice that each and every situation that I get in. And even though there will be hard situations that is terrible and seem like it's completely out of my control, try to train myself. And that's what our company does right now, trying to train other people in their mindset to focus on what you can control and doing your best with that, which will ultimately oftentimes allow for the best possible outcome to happen in sometimes an unfortunate situation.
Absolutely, and it is all about controlling the controllables, and there's times that while it is terrible that terrible things happen, um, and I come from a Christian background as well, and I don't want to believe that like God creates bad things to teach us lessons, but like there are lessons and beauty in the things that happen to us, and God can show us those beautiful things, and we can learn lessons from looking for God in those down times as well, especially if we are searching for that. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. Um, Now you were talking about the power of words and stuff, words of life and death. Have you ever read Nelson Searcy's Tongue Pierced?
Actually, I haven't. That's the first time I heard of this.
It's you will love the book. It's definitely got a lot of Bible knowledge behind it, the power of words. And I mean, you think about it, the world was created by God speaking words, let there be light. I mean, that's the first words that uttered everything into existence. But there's also a passage, and I'm not going to remember the whole thing, but he talks about the fact that you've never spoken a neutral word in your life. Your words can bring life or they can bring death. So how are you speaking life into others, or are you tearing them down and speaking death? So that's definitely one to add to your list. Again, it's called Tongue Pierced by
Yeah, you gotta
Nelson
text me
Sears.
that. You gotta
I'll,
text me
I'll I'll make sure I send you a link to that, and it's
that. Yeah,
it's a
definitely.
it's a wonderful, wonderful book. It's you'll love it. Now back to your book. One of the things I loved about your guys' book was how well you and Alexis blended your different experiences and point of views. That being a white girl and a black boy, white woman, black man. into the same lessons. Like each chapter had a lesson, but you came from two different areas and brought it together. Do you attribute your ability to do that as a commonality of the foster experience, or do you think it tells a bigger story in a country that seems to be trying to divide and separate everyone right now more and more, that if we just took the time to look, we could find more common ground?
Yeah, I think that's a great point that we didn't exactly try to focus in on, but I think because the main reason why, actually, yeah, I would agree with that. That the main reason why it was kind of a back and forth thing is because we wanted to eventually have readers look at the subject matter of each chapter of worthiness and definition of love and so many other things, and eventually think about, what was my definition of love when I was young? Who created it for me? Who created my sense of worthiness? And what were moments in my life where I felt worthless and why? So taking us out of the scenario and asking yourself that question. And as you ask yourself that question, me and Alexis have a lot of overlap in our story. And then maybe you've had some overlap in that story and your story. So everybody has their definition of love shaped by someone or something. And it's unfortunate because when I do a lot of presentations with youth, with foster youth, a lot of them tell me that their definition of love is that it hurts and that's all they know.
Mm,
And it's sad, and I always want to work to kind of change that and redefine that for them in my actions, and try to give them different, put them in different situations, or help them be put in different situations that can change their definition of love and surround themselves with those type of people. So as myself and Alexis' story did overlap, I think it does show the commonality of all of our experiences. But as you look at the different titles of each chapter, I think that everybody has moments. Everybody has their definition of love shaped by somebody. Everybody may have had moments where they felt worthless, or maybe they felt worthy. And we want to ask you why. We want your understanding around these different subject matters. And, and as you go through these ideas and these concepts between each chapter, understand who shaped it, why is it like that, and is it conducive for myself and following generations to come?
mm, mm.
And that's a question and concept that all of us have to deal with. Like, who taught us this? Why is it like this? And is it good for me? Is it good for
Yeah.
just not only just me, but is it good for me? Is it good for my community? Is it good for my great 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 grandchildren to have this
Mhm.
same idea and concept?
Yeah. And again, I think it's again some commonality that we all look at, because I can tell from reading your book and experiencing my life, like you and I had different upbringings by far. Like, um, it's not that there wasn't love in your family. It's not that you didn't have love from your parents, by any means, but it was a different form of love. And the thing I learned to experience with love in my life is self-sacrifice, and that's something that, um, you know, serving others is absolutely, one of the things we're called to do, uh, but at the same time, not necessarily at the expense of ourselves. And that's something that I've been having to work on myself, is to not be so self-sacrificing. And thankfully, I have a wonderful partner that helps give me the opportunities to step away when I'm overwhelmed, and also a good connection with friends to be able to speak and get some weight off my shoulders, and then learning to kind of process those things myself. But again, it's one of those things where, okay, I have to teach my boys, um, you know, what love should look like to them, and how much of the self-sacrificing am I teaching to them, and how much is it more teaching them to be polite and have manners and do things for others, but not at your own expense, because it's going to be a completely different world for them because they are two black boys being brought up by two white parents. So there's going to be things that they have to face that we, neither my wife nor I, like even and us two have separate experiences growing up. Um, but we don't have the experiences that they're going to experience. So it's trying to make sure we're teaching them the values of love that they should have for other people and for themselves. Um, and
Yeah,
it's a challenge out for us, but it's something that we're absolutely up for.
yeah, I think that's a great point to make. And one of the things that we always try to teach kids and people in general, even adults, and especially the advocates, because there's so much burnout in the space like child welfare or working with youth who've experienced trauma. But one thing we try to tell is a concept, in scripture that tells us is that we need to love others as we love ourselves. But the second part of that is a lot of us don't even know how to love ourselves. So we're giving away a version of love that is not true or authentic, one that we're not doing for ourselves. So we try to train and teach people how to love themselves in order to love other people. Because if we're in an abusive relationship, if we are a part of something or attached to something where it's not mutual, and again, if all relationships, I heard this the other day from a friend of mine's parents, relationships aren't always 50-50. Sometimes it's 75-25. Sometimes it's 90-10, or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
may be. But, making sure that there is mutual support and love and respect in there, and it's not just all one sided. Because if you're in a relationship with a romantic friendship, professional, whatever it is, and there's love on one side but not love on the other side, then that's an abusive relationship. And making
Mm-hmm.
sure that you know how to define love for yourself, so when you can tell people and teach people how to love you properly. And that can go down to things like love languages or respect for yourself. And even when we say our family affirmations to our baby who isn't, we haven't given birth to yet, we always say I want you to respect others just as you would respect yourself, and love others just as you would love yourself. So something we always try to practice, and one thing that we want to pass down to our child.
I love that you're speaking those affirmations to the baby already. That's awesome. That's wonderful.
Mm.
Now, speaking of love, a little bit about your love story in the book, and I don't want to embarrass you with this part at all, but you talked a lot in the book about the societal pressure as a guy to hook up with lots of girls in college, and even admitted that's what you wanted to do. But yet, when you met Alexis, it seemed like something changed all that. There was like a more of a tender side that came out of you, and that, not to say that the tender side wasn't there before, but something changed that goal of trying to hook up with as many girls as possible. To what do you attribute the strength to redefine normal in that sense?
Yeah, of course. I think that I talk a bit about it in the book, where, and you're not embarrassing me at all. I love to talk about any and everything in the book. So there is like this societal influence that, I think as I became a young man, still trying to understand what manhood meant and understand the definition and the idea of it. And, I think right after that first chapter, I go back to my childhood and what it meant as a child for me to exercise my manhood. And that meant, all the other men older than me and around me sleeping with a bunch of women. So
Mm-hmm.
in order for me to be like them, which I thought was the image of a man, I had to do that as well. And entering into my college years, I thought that in order to express myself as a young man and develop myself in that way, that's what I had to do. And being able to exercise that is what I thought. But meeting Alexis, I think that deep down I knew, I believe that because we are all image bearers and we are all made in the image of God, a lot of times when we're doing things that are wrong, we can feel it in us. Sometimes, a lot of times we can feel it in us if something is wrong, if something's not right. And I feel like in that moment, entering into college while I was trying to do things and mess with a bunch of girls and talk to a bunch of girls, I think that I was doing things that were my spirit was kind of against. And I wanted to die to that, to just forget about it and just say, this is what I'm going to do instead. But when I met Alexis, it's kind of a reminder, because of the authenticity in our conversation of who she was and who I really needed to be for myself, I think it was kind of a reminder of, oh, this is truly who I am and who I need to be. And with me being the unauthentic version of myself, I'm probably going to lose somebody that or hurt somebody that I truly care about. And it's kind of like a wake up, wake up, you're about to mess something up for yourself. So I think it was a wake up call meeting Alexis and helping me avoid. It was a decision on my end I needed to make, but it was something that really helped me to make that decision. I had to do in order to exercise my true authenticity and who I really was, and not trying to be this quote unquote ladies man that I thought I wanted to be and needed to be. So
And after you started identifying your more authentic self with the help of Lexus, how much you spoke about it a little bit in the book, but how much like kind of uh, teasing, harassing, blowback did you get from your brothers and friends and stuff that you were like, you know what, that's not me, that's not the life I'm about. Like I'm like this is who I am. This is who I was meant to be all along. Like how did that process go for you? Being able to transform into yourself and um, kind of step away from those pressures of
yeah,
your friends and your family. Because I know you did speak in the book about the holidays just not being for you as fun going back home anymore because of the environment that you're going back to.
yeah. I think in culture and society in general, unfortunately, being with one person long term not only does is it frowned upon, but it seems impossible. And for me to be taking that route, especially so young, me and Alexis met at when I was 19, and for me being able to take that route so young, when society and culture in general tells you to explore explore sexually and test the waters and test out everything out there. For me to be exploring and doing this with one person, taking I feel like almost like a non-traditional route nowadays, and
Yeah.
being with one person and pursuing them and learning more about them and even learning more about yourself. I think that was a sense of discipline that wasn't understood by some of my family, and was, I wouldn't say frowned upon, but it wasn't as supported and accepted as easily. So yeah, I did for my brothers and friends, kind of like, is this sure what you want to do, or nah? That's a lame way of thinking about it. Some judgment, and because I do have grace and mercy for a lot of people, I probably forgot about a lot of the slander that I received trying to just be one person, especially being that she is white. So that being something that's even deeper that we talk about in the book, but I think that more and more I started to learn more about myself, learn more about being disciplined, how I could be disciplined, the benefits of it, and just my mental, spiritual, and emotional growth throughout this journey. It started to become the criticism or whatever started to become more and more silent, and I started to ignore it even more because of the benefits and how much better I felt as I started to grow and mature in those ways.
Awesome. And I kind of hinted at it a little bit there. So we'll dive into it. Obviously, and unfortunately, you two have to face different prejudices being a biracial couple. You even talked about the experience you had with your engagement announcement in the book. What are some of the ways you've been able to handle the things said or the looks that you've been given throughout your relationship and now, and how do you think you're going to handle having a biracial baby and some of the things that will be said to you? Because again, in your book, you alluded to the fact that um, one of the ways that you felt you had to be a man was you had to have a sense of physicality, the fights you would get into, and being kind of someone that people turn to uh, be a little bit more physical to get things done.
Yeah, of course. So I think that being a follower of God gives so much perspective and understanding of different situations. So as it relates to being in a interracial marriage, I feel like so you have to understand that your foundation of who you are fundamentally. And it's not that I'm just dating somebody outside my race, but being that I know who they are personally and fundamentally, and that they will support me, they will die for me, and I will do the same for them. And they're not just accepting me who I am on the inside, but also who I am on the outside. So they know I'm black. They know what I support, who I am, and I needed somebody who was just intentional about that, but more above just who we are and physically. I needed someone who can dig deep spiritually. I think sometimes, of course, there can be barriers where with race relations, but I think who you are spiritually is deeper than anything who we are externally or on the outside. And being that she was someone who was mature, who could grow, who was smart and amazing, and who was really, a spiritually sound person, and continue to grow in that area, it's something that I definitely wanted to be a part of and invest in a romantic relationship. So I knew that it was important for me to attach to that, because that's the most important thing beyond just the racial barriers. Who she was spiritually and mentally was probably one of the most important aspects of our relationship. So with that being said, having that as our foundation and raising our child on that, that yes, there will be differences, there will be hardships in your life, there will be things that you'll go through, but number one, and most importantly, because you may receive love and hate from black people, you may receive love and hate from white people, but what does God say? And when God created us, He said we were good.
Mm.
And teaching my child the truth of it all. Because the world's going to say your hair is this, your hair is that, your skin is this, your skin is that. But God said, when He created us, He said it was good. I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, black hair is tough, or it's bad, or it's this, or it's that." But when God created us, He said it was good. So if God, my Creator, said it was good, then how can any human being tell me otherwise? That's the foundation I want to raise my child on.
Oh man, I love that. I got a hoodie on, but I got goosebumps right now. That was beautiful. Oh, now you recently on your podcast you had Angela Kejada Banks, author of the Black Foster Youth Handbook, and I know I'm in the process of reading her book right now. But I know one of the things that she talks about in hers is to take pride in your heritage, your racial heritage, and finding out like, I know, okay, there's I forget how many countries within Africa, and all the different dialects and everything that were there. Um, and so you'll see, like, as um, interfaith couples get married, like you might have a Jewish person and a Christian person get married, or different things. Like they still, a lot of those couples will still recognize and celebrate both sides of that faith, and what you're saying now with making sure that your child knows that they were created in God's image and that they were good. Is that going to what Angela said in her book um, about respecting and teaching, your heritage to your son? Is that something that you're looking at doing as well? Because that's for a white couple with black kids, like, we're wanting to make sure that, we respect all parts of their heritage, and that we're teaching them every bit of their life, not just, okay, you were born, you went in foster care and we adopted you, but no, like where their family heritage, and before they were slaves, their ancestors were slaves in the US, like, okay, where does their heritage really come from? We wanted to teach them and celebrate that. So um, how do you see that kind of working with you and Alexis, or is it still more about the faith being the the overall encompassing umbrella, and then from there you just kind of go as life leads you with raising your child?
Yeah, so the faith is the foundation of it all, is because and it's important, I believe, to have that faith as your foundation, because in the beginning, God said we are made in His image, and
Mhm.
as much I'm having a daughter, and as much as I want to boost, and I think there's a term called racial esteem. As much as I want
Mm.
to boost that and contribute to that, and I think I will teach about heritage and how far African heritage, especially in West Africa, goes beyond just enslavement. as much as I want to teach about that, the foundation of it all has to be that you are made in the image of God, and there is no higher compliment or anything that I can give you, that you are made in the image of your Creator. So
Mm,
that's the biggest thing. But also, as it relates to history, your racialist theme being that, I think for a lot of black people and black kids, we teach them that your history started as slavery. And if you teach people and kids that your history started with slavery, then that's kind of becomes your beginning. And
yeah,
you can imagine if you teach a kid that your beginning started with slavery, your beginning started with white people, you can just imagine how you feel about yourself. So, starting with the faith that you are made in the beginning, you are made in the image of God. But beyond that, here is just some of your history in West Africa and history, in wherever you're from is important. How you got to this point is extremely important. So, I think bringing it full circle is extremely important. So, and not being biased as far as, like I said, you here's where your history started in the U.S., but going deeper and deeper and deeper, and starting with that faith being the first thing and the foundation of it all.
absolutely. And even for white people to think about too and stuff when it comes to uh, our heritage, where we came from. I mean, I can't tell you how many white friends I have and stuff like that. They trace their ancestry to Italy, to Ireland, to Germany, and stuff, and so they celebrate those holidays, and yet, like, you know, we're there's the idea that they're trying to teach, like I said, black people that they started in the U.S. as slaves. Like, no, like there's if you're gonna take pride in your heritage, then it's extremely important that, like, that black people, Hispanic people, whatever different racial background you come from, that you are able to recognize and celebrate that as well. I definitely agree with that, and Angela Quijada Banks saying that in her book, and that's something that I'm just so glad, like, reading your book and her book, and that it's not just to help serve this podcast, but to help serve me as a parent, and I'm just so grateful for that.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. I love that you're kind of getting both of those put together. That's amazing.
Thank you. Now, I feel like Alexis and my wife would get along wonderfully, as she was able to find opportunities for scholarships and grants to study abroad a lot of the times. And I think from her ability to do that, to find those scholarships, the two of you turn that skill into a company called the Scholarship Expert. What can you explain to us what the Scholarship Expert is?
Yeah, so the scholarship expert is something that Alexis started actually, I think, a year or so before we met. And it's something that we wanted to support people with finding and applying for scholarships for. It's kind of discontinued right now,
Ah,
kind of discontinued right now, but we still have resources available at the scholarshipexpert.com and want to continue to teach people how to find and apply for scholarships. And I was fortunate enough to graduate debt free, so that's been amazing. But wanted to just be of support with trying to help people find different resources and outlets to contribute to their education overall.
yeah, because so many people are just always crippled with student loans, and whatever the government works out with student loan forgiveness and all that stuff going on. I mean, well, that's for them to debate. But the fact that you guys have been able to find resources and help track resources for people to graduate debt free, um, especially assisting, with the work you guys do with foster youth and people that are aging out of the foster system, helping them find grants and scholarships where they're able to start turning those percentages the other way, because of the numbers of foster uh, foster alumni that graduate college and really thrive, is unfortunately the numbers are a lot worse than people realize. Um, the other thing I would say is, you've been advocates and speakers. You've talked about the fact that you've been doing a lot with speaking with foster youth. you formed the Rose Empowerment Group. What can you tell us about that and
Yeah,
what the
so
acronym Rose is?
yeah, ROSE stands for Rising Over Societal Expectations, and it is actually Rose from Concrete podcast is where we mainly do Rose, and I don't know if you ever heard the Tupac Shakur poem, but you can look that
I
up.
got the book. I love it.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
a big Tupac fan back in the day. So
yeah. So you can look that up to understand the full meaning of Rose from Concrete, and just trying to spark conversations around different methods and techniques. I'm very action oriented and not talking just story, but actions and ideas of how we can support other people and be intentional about that. So that's with that podcast is what we usually do with Rose, and yeah, just being focused on trying to provide strategies and techniques on how other people can be a rose that grows from concrete and be successful whenever field that they're in, either in education, academics, business, whatever it may be.
That's something that you had originally started yourself, the Rose from Concrete, and it was all again that was founded or based off the idea from that Tupac book, correct? The poem.
Yeah, so it's a quote that we use in our book, and that is just a concept that's kind of been recurring in my life. People have said to me, and I wanted to make it a theme or an idea, invite other people to be a part of that conversation as well.
And if there's anything else I'm missing that you guys with redefining normal with that company, what else could you say that redefining normal, what you guys are about?
So, to kind of summarize, redefining normal is all about identifying how trauma becomes normalized in families, communities, and society, and how to instead create generational success. So, identifying generational trauma and then creating generational success, talking about the strategies, the techniques, the ideas of it all, and how we can be intentional as possible in our daily and weekly practices. Doing workshops, trainings, speeches, doing it all, trying to be super intentional, minute by minute, hour by hour, with our actions, thoughts, and behaviors, how we can contribute to our legacy and generational success.
Awesome. And the fact that you talked about you have been doing affirmations with your baby and still unborn baby that's in Alexis's belly. Um, you also have started a redefining fatherhood video series on YouTube. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, of course. So we're redefining fatherhood, trying to just talk about our experiences, and I've definitely been slacking on putting out more videos, but trying to talk about our experiences as it relates to what fathers can do to be involved, even during pregnancy, what I'm doing now, doing the research, the videos, trying to support my partner, stretching, food, whatever it may be. What can I do to be an intentional partner in raising this baby and being a part of the process in general? Because I'm not feeling the pain and carrying the baby. So what can I do to be involved in supporting my partner through the process, and not only just being a biological dad, but being a father to my child?
I love that.
One thing also I did want to mention is that in the upcoming weeks and months, just a few things I want to throw out there. So we are this month in July 2022, we're preparing to release our faith-based companion guide. Now we have a companion guide where we take our lives out of the story of redefining normal and allow you to put your story and conversations and activities in the book, where we challenge you with different questions and scenarios. In this July, we're releasing our faith-based companion guide, where we're basically doing the same thing, but more of a faith-based perspective and challenging you to not only just reflect on your trauma and insecurities, but how you can use what you learn and apply that as a community, as a church, to support individuals, families, and communities to grow and develop and change their lens from a trauma-based lens to a faith-based or just developing growth lens overall.
Oh, wow. That sounds like an amazing project. That's awesome.
And last thing too is that this fall we are preparing to release our children's book as well. So preparing for that also, and don't want to give out the exact name yet, but it's going to be interesting. That goes along with the redefining normal theme, and it's going to be amazing. I'm excited about it.
I'm very excited for that too. I was that was going to be my next question. It came back to me. Was that you said you wanted to identify yourself more as an author, and I was going to ask if you have more books on the way, stuff like that. So it sounds like you have the companion guide, you got a children's book. Are either one of you the artist for the children's book, or did you bring someone else in?
Nah, we want to try to. I'm always about getting other people involved. So trying to get other artists and other people involved with the editing. I always feel like these projects are group and community projects. So trying to get people to look at the script, get their input, get their ideas involved. If there are illustrators out there, get them involved as well. Different people involved in these projects and get their perspective and their input to try to see how we can get a full circle perspective as we put these projects out. So trying to get as many people involved as possible.
Nice. Now, okay. Speaking of group projects, then say Redefine Normal. It's already an amazing book, and I believe it's tracking pretty well, doing really well. When it gets turned into a movie, who plays Justin and who plays Alexis?
Oh man, that's funny. Oh man, that's a hard one. Who's gonna play me? I don't know. What
Because
young? What
Denzel's getting a little old, so
I
it's
was
gonna
about
be
to
kind of
say
hard to say.
Denzel. I don't know, man. Get somebody that look way better than me and is in fit and in shape. I don't know. Get like Michael B. Jordan play the adult me or something like that.
There we go. Okay,
Yeah,
okay, Michael B.
comedians and
Jordan.
actors that look better than me and something like that. I don't know. But nah, I do. I can't see this as a Netflix series for sure. So if
Oh,
you got
yeah.
any Hollywood connects, let's talk.
Hey, anyone listening, definitely get this on for Netflix. You will not regret it. It's
Uh-huh.
definitely be a top viewed. So, and then the other question, if it were to be made into a movie, I know on your podcast, you've usually asked uh, your guest what is a song that really is like kind of helps them like shift focus or really rise above societal expectations. So that being the idea of redefine normal, I know you and Alexis both kind of have your songs that you turn to. Is there like a song, like if you could share what those songs are that you and Alexis turn to, and then if there's like something newer that you turn to, that you think would fit the soundtrack for the movie Redefining Normal, or is there who would your dream producer be to work on the soundtrack for Redefining Normal?
Oh man, you asked some deep questions. I think one of Alexis' favorite songs that she even put in the book is "Imagine Me" by Kurt Franklin. So that's something that's huge. I know she would like to be in there. For me, I just like I've been listening to a lot of Maverick City music, so I will like a bunch of their songs sprinkled throughout there. But a mixture of a lot of gospel and maybe some thought provoking rap and things like that. I can't say who or what producer, but probably a mixture of those things. And different seasons in my life, I have different soundtracks going on. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I'm with you on the different seasons of life. It's and it's amazing when you find that old mix CD or just even going through those uh, iPod or no, iTunes or Amazon suggestions and stuff where it's like, oh, I forgot all about that person. Like, okay, okay. Uh, I tell you for our adoption day for our boys, I made two slideshows. I made like my original one was like 12 minutes long, and then my wife's like, "That's too long. No one's gonna watch that." So I shortened it to like 6 minutes long. And one of the songs that every time it comes on my like the radio, my boys just love it and start singing. It's "Together" by For King and Country with Kirk Franklin and uh, Tori Kelly, and they just love the song, and that
There you
has
go.
such deep meaning for us too and stuff. So it's
No, I love it. I love it. That's
but
amazing.
so I think if we had a movie about us and stuff, I think that one would be definitely in there
Mhm.
for King Country. So, Justin, where can people find out more about you, about Redefining Normal, about Rose from Concrete, all the things like drop, any handles, websites, whatever you got for us.
Yeah, of course, of course. So if you want to email us for any speaking engagements, workshops, anything Redefining Normal related, contact us at info@re-definingnormal.com. Our website is re.definingnormal.com, where you can find the podcast, roll some concrete, some cool merchandise, the book itself, other books, companion guides. That's where you'll be able to find a children's book coming up. That's where you'll also be able to join our email list for updates on where we'll be around the country, other projects that are coming up, free information on where we can, how and where we can support you, and just continuing to build relationships. So follow us on Facebook at Redefining Normal Movement. TikTok, yep, we're on TikTok. So follow us on there. TikTok and Instagram is Defining Normal. And let's just stay connected and follow us and subscribe to our YouTube or Redefining Normal also for the daddy vlogs.
Awesome. And one last thing is, I did see when I was getting ready for the podcast that Redefine Normal is available on Audible. Did you guys read it, or did they hire someone else to read it?
We hired us to read the audiobook, so you'll get our voices, our emotions, our raw, authentic emotions during that time. So grab the audiobook as well, which you can find on Amazon, or we'll get it through our website as well. So.
All right. Well, Justin, I don't want to keep any longer. I appreciate all your time, and just thank you so much for being here. For everyone else, just thank you for tuning in. Definitely check out their book. Amazing. Like I said, all those things I mentioned before, heart-wrenching, but necessary and hopeful, inspiring. And just know whatever your family looks like, whatever love looks like to you, you're born into your name, but we become family by heart.